Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Welcome back to Real Estate Coaching Radio. I have a surprise for you, listeners. We have a great guest today, Mr. John Walkinshaw, and he is broadcasting live. He actually hooked together his team of Huskies, and he pummeled through the 14 feet of snow in Canada, and he cracked the ice off of his igloo, because I don't even know what the temperature there is today, and he's made it to the podcast today. And John has got a great story to tell. He's a longtime coaching client of my wife Julie, and he's one of the I shouldn't say this because the other coaching clients that she has will get jealous, but she's one of the handful of clients that Julie will tell me about the coaching calls, not everyone, but most of them, after the call happens. So she'll give me a debrief on what happened this week with John, or she'll tell me about some big deal he got together, or something that a normal agent would never be able to figure out how to put together. And here it is, John, that's putting together these kind of interesting deals. And I was so happy to hear that he is now being honored as, and John, I know you're going to be Canadian, so you're not going to let me overly puff you, but here in this particular case, you are honored as being the #1 agent, or like one of the number 3 or 4 agents in this massive brokerage in Canada. So I'll let you pick up from there.
Yeah, no problem. It's a pleasure to chat with you. I've been listening to your podcast for probably 5 years, so it's nice to talk to you direct. I feel like we're friends, but we haven't actually spoken previously.
So you tell them where go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm part of Royal LePage RCR Realty. We've got there's about 1,000 agents total, but there's about 500 in my region essentially. And as non-team, because I'm not a team, I believe I am the #1 agent for the past couple of years. So it's been fun.
So, but here's the fun part, actually, the interesting thing. You came to real estate when you were in your late 40s, correct? Can you tell them a little bit about your background and what you did prior to selling real estate?
Yep, absolutely. I spent 27 years in the automotive industry. I spent 23 years going through all the different levels of the Royals of a Chevrolet Cadillac store. At that time, Oldsmobile as well. And kind of ended up as the general sales manager. There was no more opportunity to grow in that business, and I went to a local Honda dealership as the general manager and spent 4 years there. And interestingly enough, I was let go because of a bit of a change in the corporate structure. And at 47, after all the accolades that I'd had in the automotive industry, and then just being let go completely out of the blue, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to go back to the automotive industry, and decided to get back into real estate. And although it was terrifying, it's the absolute best thing that I've ever done.
Well, there's actually a lot of people that come to real estate with similar backgrounds, where they just basically get tired of having to count on somebody else for their future, and they realize one of the best things, it's actually a double-edged sword, one of the best things for real estate is you can work as hard as you want and, generally speaking, earn as much money as you possibly can by being of service to other people. But the flip side to it is there's no one really, especially the way the industry and brokerages are set up, there's no one really forcing you or holding you accountable to doing anything, and that's the reason the failure rate's so high. So how did you go from selling cars at a high level obviously requires a lot of discipline too, but it's different. It's less structured than real estate, because at least when you sold cars, you had to be there during a certain amount of time, and there was people all the way around, always. Yeah. So how did you tell me about that transition? What was that like, going from one environment to the other, albeit still in sales?
Right. So for me, being a sales manager and being a general manager, I always tried to set the bar with, if I'm the hardest working person in the place, then it almost guilts everybody else into working, at least 80 or 90% as hard as I do. So I would usually be the first one, to turn on the lights and the last one to turn them off. And In our world, the first one to be out there brushing off the cars from snow and all that type of thing. Whereas, my role didn't necessarily say that that's what I should be doing. But so when it came to the real estate business, I decided that, I was going to actually pay for an office. I was going to show up at 8:30 every day, regardless of whether I was, if I had appointments for that day or not. And I was just going to, fake it till I make it. And I literally never missed a beat as far as the amount of time that I spent doing what I do. But the difference is real estate affords me the time that I can disappear for a few hours midday and, do those types of things that I wasn't able to do in my past life. So it's been really, really great that way.
I think a lot of people find it shocking how little somebody makes selling a car, and I don't know what it is in Canada, but I know in the United States. When you sell a new Honda, how much does someone make on average when they sell a single, unit?
Probably somewhere in the range of $500, depending on bonuses and stuff. The average salesperson in Canada sells 8 to 10 cars a month, and that's an average. A very significant performer selling 20, and they're pretty busy to do that. You're definitely capped as far as your income, yet you're never capped as far as the amount of hours you're putting in trying to chase down those leads and all that type of thing. So there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of really positive benefits. Being the general manager for me really honed in my business skills and financial statements and all that type of mindset, and I bring that to my real estate business where everything has a place, and every decision I make is based on profit, not on ego. And I'm very conscious of that day to day, because I know there's a ton of people that just seem to spend so much money and energy and time and distract themselves from their real true purpose with their ego chasing. So I'm really cautious about that.
Yeah, you obviously, you're a coaching client and a long-term listener too, so that's a recurring theme. But it is kind of fascinating how many people run their decision, like the filters they're running, what they think they can make business decisions, but at the end of the day, they're just being manipulated through their ego. Can you give an example, or can you tell the listeners how how to run, separate those two in your mind so you're just not buying a pretty shiny thing because it makes you feel good, how you're actually leading with profit? Can you discuss to the listeners from a business perspective how you do that? Keep your head clear?
Yep. Well, yeah, there's obviously every literal decision that we make in the business is based on that. But even something as simple as my Christmas party that I run, we invite a couple hundred people or more. We actually invite probably 400 or 500 people, and we end up having 2 or 3 that usually can attend, and we just have free hamburgers and hot dogs, and everybody gets a free Christmas tree, and we relationship together and spend time. Everybody brings their families. I'm more than happy when I'm dealing with one person. I say, oh, can I bring my sister and her kids? And that's fantastic. The more the merrier. It just costs me a few extra hamburgers. But it's a great opportunity, and the decision to do that, it costs me a fair bit of money, but at the end of the day, it's really cheap advertising, and it's a really way to go deep with your clients and or potential people that they bring, and it's just a nice environment. So again, that's an expense that we do, but it has a return, or we wouldn't do it. And there's so many advertising opportunities, especially, branding and all the different calls you get every single day of the week, that we filter through that. Is this going to make me more money or not?
Well, talk about that, John. It's not often that I get somebody that's got your background and, business knowledge and thinking clearly and not, what listeners, I hope you're hearing, he knows what he doesn't know. And if you're listening to what he's saying, he's actually taking the time to gut check himself. That's what you're hearing him express, is how he goes about doing it. So the first filter that I heard you say basically is you're going through there and you're determining for sure whether or not you can see a direct correlation between the money you spend and the profit that you make. And when you guys run through it, that's so John right there, that knocks out 99.9% of all the things you're ever solicited to purchase, does it not?
Yep. Yeah,
that's
especially website just comes to mind. Like, I would really love to have a couple funky, really neat, cool things that I would do with my website, but I've done the research to know that I don't get enough traffic to justify. I've got a website that's professional and hits all the boxes on what's necessary, but tricking it out with thousands of dollars worth of fancy other things isn't good value because I'm not getting enough eyes on it. And spending money to send people to that isn't as important as getting my phone to ring. So we do, different types of advertising, and we monitor and track to find out, where our leads are coming from so that we know to do that type of thing again or not. So, it's to me that if it's all about profit, and it should be, why are we getting up in the morning if we're not actually trying to make a living and and do the things that we want to do? Throwing the money away on chasing the next thing that strokes our ego just doesn't seem like a good play for me.
So when you said branding and whatnot, and that you've determined that those things do not have a clear, defined return on investment, and they don't, listeners. None of those things do.
No.
When those things are being offered to you, listeners, pay attention. When you ask them a business question like what John would ask, they're not going to give you a clear answer. They're going to tell you it's one of those things you just have to do repetitively, and over time, somehow, magically, mystically, through witchcraft and alchemy, you're going to sort of carve out this permanent spot in everyone's psyches in your particular market that when they think real estate, they think of you. I mean, that is, in essence, what their pitch is. And, guys, it's just not true. That's not how actual behavior takes place with consumers. So, John, can you drill down on that a little bit? Because the branding thing, you basically have flourished in the industry during the peak of a lot of, just utter malarkey. You've got the team thing, you got the branding thing, you got the social networking thing. You haven't really deep dived into any of that stuff, and yet you've become one of the most successful agents. And I'm going to say it. I know you're going to try to, cut me off the knees when I say this, but one of the most successful agents in Canada. That's just a fact.
Yeah. Well,
so how have you?
Sure.
Obviously people put pressure on you to do these things. You probably get literal peer pressure and professional pressure to do these things. How do you know for sure that these things, can you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah. So from a branding perspective, I can spend advertising money and pretend to brand myself, and I get a lead that, in my opinion, let's say somebody emails me or calls me as a result of a branding type scenario. The odds of me actually doing business with that person or even getting, deeply engaged with them at some level is very low. The other energy and money and time that I put into things that get a client that's in a different scenario is more helpful. So, I do a ton of volunteering in my community. I'm way more likely to meet somebody through something like that I'm doing. And when I have an opportunity to come into contact with somebody through, sponsoring something and being at the event to be able to, participate and all those different types of things, it's just so much better value to me. And when you get somebody that says, "Oh, I'm interested in talking to you about real estate," and they put their hand up as someone that you could actually talk to, your chances of closing them on dealing with you is like 1,000 times better than just some random lead that came from some branding thing. And branding's never ending. You can just keep throwing money into that hole, and it's never going to fill up. Whereas,
why do agents do it, John?
With me,
Yep. Well, logically, though, everything you're saying makes perfect sense. You cannot find a person on the face of the earth that could actually say what you're saying does not make perfect sense. It's so obviously true. So why do you think, in your opinion, because you have tons of agents, obviously, are looking up to you in your own market, but then now you're going to have tens of thousands that are going to be listening to this in replay. Why do they do it? Why do they kind of fall prey to this whole branding scheme?
Well, I think they see other companies that brand well. And I guess if you're buying a bottle of pop, that's a good thing. But, when you're dealing with something that's as significant as a real estate transaction, I think a referral from someone who, has been in contact with you has 50 times or 1,000 times the value that that it would have if somebody just happens to know you're in real estate. Even in our little sleepy town here, we've got hundreds and hundreds of real estate agents. So, how much money do you have to spend where you're the only name that comes to mind? I think chasing that is not good value for your time or your money.
Even if you are the only agent that comes to mind, that does not mean they're going to call you, listeners. So I'm going to give you guys and again, I'm going to have to just pull this from my memory, and this is not apps. Just give me some levity on this, okay? So, listeners, here's how it actually works. When you're deciding, let's say today you have to hire a vet to fix your dog, right? Something's wrong with your dog. Nothing life-threatening. You don't need to worry about it. And let's say you're, like Julie and I moved to Puerto Rico 4 months ago, and we have a dog. This literally happened. And Ollie had some sort of health problem. And there were ads for vets in the local paper. There were ads here and there, but that isn't how Julie went about finding the vet. She actually ended up asking some of the parents of Zoe's, peers at school who have pets who were in similar situations, where did you find your vet? Who is the vet that you're using? And that's how she went about making the decision. Now, had Julie not been able to, find a vet from the referrals that she was seeking, then she may have responded to an ad. That's been the same pattern that everybody since the beginning of time has used to go about making their purchase decisions, and they're still following that exact pattern now. So the statistics work something like this, that like 50 or 75% of all purchase decisions are made based on a referral from a trusted friend or an advisor. So what happens is the decision-making tree is the first thing that people do is they ask themselves, again, we can use this vet thing. So Julie asked, do I know a vet? The answer was no. Okay, so that's off. Now what am I going to do? Do I have somebody who I can ask for a referral? And that's what she did, and she found a vet through the referral source. Now, had none of those people had a referral, then she may have responded to an ad. So the way it works, and there's been tons of studies that have been done on this, and this is not new information. This information's been around for 50, 60 years, is that essentially what you look at essentially the way it works is like the first big chunk of people, like 25% of the people will make a decision who to hire based on their previous experience. And then like 50% or 60% make a decision who they're going to hire based off a referral from a trusted friend or advisor, and the rest might respond to an ad. So if you look at this logically, and my numbers are not correct, actually I think something like less than 10% respond to an ad. An ad includes social networking. An ad includes a Yelp ad. An ad includes anything that's an ad, guys. So most people, you included, make your decisions based on someone a referral from a trusted friend or advisor. You ask everyone who they use when it comes. Now, if it's something that's trivial, then obviously you're not seeking advice from other people. But selling your house, buying a house, not trivial. You're always going to go to advice, seeking advice from people you trust. That's just how humans operate. You need to listen to that,
and as far
listeners.
as holding your commissions, yeah. I think that you're much more likely to, to have an easier conversation on getting paid, what you need to do, than you would if it's somebody responding to an ad. You're nobody.
That's right.
You're just one of several people they're probably shopping. Whereas with a strong reference, you've got a much better client that you're dealing with. It's going to be an easier road, and there's confidence already pre-built in. You just have to kind of accent that a little bit and reiterate it, and away you go.
So let's talk about what you're actually doing. You mentioned the Christmas tree, and everyone wants to know about lead generation, right? And it's so funny when I ask lead generation questions from my podcast guests, everyone's always looking for the easy button. People are just looking for what's the postcard that you do where you get all the listing calls, or what's the email, or what's the thing that basically is passive that will require no effort on my part that just basically makes the money pour in, right? I mean, they're always looking for the shortcut. So listeners, when you hear somebody that's actually operating at this level, one of the top agents in his country, you need to be listening to what he says and do what he does. Don't try to go to Facebook and start combing for ideas that will require no effort. So, John, what are the things that work best for you? And be as specific as you can for lead generation.
Yep. I've got a heavy spoke of past clients and friends that I deal with. Again, a lot of my business comes from referral and from people that have known me. When I go to a restaurant and I get something that's maybe not perfect, I don't rip the face off of the server and make a big scene, because at the end of the day, all of the people in that restaurant would judge me on that. And so many salespeople that I've met, you know, they just make bad mistakes on certain types of things. So for me, you know, living your life in a friendly way, and you know, being very complimentary and being thankful, you know, being genuine. It has to be genuine with the people that you know, and then kind of earning the right to ask them, is there anybody you know that's going to be transacting in real estate in the next few months? If you ever hear of anybody, I'd be honored if you would send that person to me or give me their name. I'd be happy to call. I do a lot of videos, which I do market on Facebook. Facebook seems to be the best way for me to market my video. And they're all about the properties that I'm selling. I don't do specific videos saying list with me. I'm saying buy this house. And they're so heavily watched that I get a whole bunch of people that recognize me that I've never met before, but they feel they know me because of the videos. And again, when I meet them, we have a nice interaction, we chat, and it's amazing how, you know, midway through the conversation they kind of admit that they actually are going to be doing something in 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then you just kind of have to kind of retain that relationship and keep in contact with them until you actually get into an actual legit business conversation with them. So for me, a lot of it is, you know, the organic way that I end up meeting people, and I treat everybody with respect. I genuinely like people. I end each of my videos with the phrase, you know, it would be an honor to serve you, and I believe that. I do feel that I'm so thankful for the people that I get to do business with, and it is an honor to deal with them, and I think that just kind of comes across, and people want to deal with me as a result of it. I'm professional, but I'm not, you know, tight. I'm genuine, and I really do love the people that I deal with. I literally, out of the hundreds of deals that I've done since I started, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 people that, you know, I didn't genuinely and thoroughly enjoy dealing with. It's a stressful deal for these people, and we have to recognize that. And, you know, when they behave poorly, we need to recognize where that's coming from, not get our egos out of whack, and just help hold their hand through the process and help them deal with the situation. And at the end of the day, when you're able to do that, they are so loyal and so thankful. It's ridiculous. And they're bragging to their friends about how they have to use you. And what better advertising can you get than that? It's a huge blessing to be able to have that scenario. And again, I'm in a, you know, relatively small area, you know, maybe in New York City or something that's a little bit harder to do, but I actually don't think it is. Everybody knows people, you know, and if you make the right impact on people and genuinely try and help them as your first priority, they will want to respond to that and help you back. So, you know, that's kind of who I am, and that's definitely been helpful.
Have you ever gone through, so like I'm hearing what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. It's obviously what we tell all of our coaching clients to do, and you came to being a coaching client already knowing that you have to ask direct questions in order to get leads. You knew this from your past, you know, your background in sales, but so many agents, yep. The idea of asking the simple question you just gave them would basically cause them to probably just literally drop dead, because they do not want to ask a question they just a simple question where you're asking if you could be of service to anyone that they know, that it would be an honor to help them or someone else they know buy or sell a house. Most agents are paralyzed in fear by asking a question where they could potentially hear the word no. And they just have all this head junk about, well, if I ask a question, then I'll seem desperate. Then I'll seem like, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking about them for the sake of a real estate deal, or all these conversations that start to happen when, you know, agents start thinking about themselves as salespeople and having to act like salespeople. So that's the reality.
But it's
and I'm sure
like a reciprocity thing. One of the things that I did when I first got in the business is I bought these, you know, nice gold pens. And it's got my name and address or phone number and website. But it's a nice high-end looking pen. They cost me, I buy them by the thousand literally, and they cost me like $1.50. And I hand them out to just about everybody. If I go into a restaurant and I have a good meal, I'll give them a pen as a thank you. And, you know, people, they just stop and they look at it and they're like so amazed that they get this pen and they think it's wonderful. And, after you've given them something, they quite often want to respond to the fact that you were generous and gave them something for nothing. And that's when they 9 times out of 10 bring up, oh, my sister or my mother or whatever. And I don't even have to ask because I've been polite and thankful and given them something like this pen. And in turn, they want to give back to me. And I don't know. It's not, I don't do it for that reason, but it's amazing how it just seems to work out. And honestly, I don't know how many dollars I spend a year advertising me rather than my listings, but it would be very, very, very little, less than 1% of my spend. And the phone seems to ring.
Oh, absolutely. Well, ultimately, whenever, and I know you've listened to a lot of these interviews, whenever we interview one of the top agents in the country or whatever, their business, some of the ones with the big teams, and I want to ask you about this. Julie, your coach, just texted me and told me to make sure I ask you about the fact that you don't have a team, which I want to talk about in a second. But, whenever we interviewed top agents in the country, and by top agents, it's not just production listeners, it's not just the number of homes that they sold, or it's not just somebody who you might know from, being on TV or anything like that. But what we focus on in our coaching organization are agents like John. Top agents are the agents who want to be of service to other people and, frankly, make the most net profit, because that is the point of being in business. The profit from, the product you have from selling real estate, it's all the things that you would naturally normally think of: happy customers, sold houses, all that type of feel-good stuff. But at the end of the day, the true product you have from selling real estate is profit. And if you don't have profit, or if you're not essentially running a profit-focused business, you're not going to have profit. Profit doesn't happen by accident. How many of you have convinced yourself that you really don't need to pay attention to your numbers because you figure you'll sell enough houses and it'll all work out? Well, how's that working out? It doesn't work out unless you enter into the business, or at least unless you come around to realizing that this business will eat you alive. You will spend all the money you make unless you're putting profit first. And the best way to have a profit-focused business is to take your ego out of the equation. And if you're hearing what John's saying and how he's saying it, you're hearing that he's expressing the fact that he knows his highest and truest purpose is being service to other people. That's what I'm hearing. That's the vibe that I'm getting. And when you approach the business like that, what you're going to quickly discover is that you will naturally, get business with a lot less stress, because a lot of the stress does come from your own egos, but you're going to then have a more profitable business because you will not have to buy the business. This does take skill. Some of you are going to have a lot of head junk you need to clear out with regards to how you see yourself. John clearly sees himself as a salesperson. I'm a salesperson. Julie's a salesperson.
Absolutely.
The most successful people on the face of the earth.
I have no shame in that at all.
None. Well, I mean, but okay.
If I was hiring a real estate agent, I would want a salesperson. I don't want a marketing professional or whatever we're tagging ourselves as. I want somebody that's going to get down and dirty and get somebody to buy my house. And for all the money and for the least amount of aggravation and time.
That's right, but it is weird, isn't it? Where the agents just will repel against the idea of calling themselves salespeople. Can you explain to me why?
Unfortunately, I'm the wrong guy. I was a car salesman, and I'm not ashamed to admit, I was for almost 27 to 30 years, and I'm proud of what I learned and the people that I met, and I'm a salesperson. I have absolutely no concern branding myself as that. But yeah, you talk about the profit and everything, and to me, I do track what I do. You had said something that kind of triggered that. I track I've got a goal for my year, and in order for me to get my goal for the year, I have to break that down into what I need to do per month, and then I have to break that down into per week, and I have to break that down into per day. And if I know I need to talk to so many people per day in order to get so many listings per week and per month to be able to sell the houses per year. It's all math. It ebbs and flows with the way the market goes, but at the end of the day, it's just math. And if the market slows down and there's more days on market, then I know I need to get more listings because they're not going to sell as quick, which means I need to talk to more people. How am I going to do that today? Do I do a bomb video and send that out? Do I, phone 10 people? There's a bunch of different ways to do that. Do I drop in at a busy place where I know I'm going to run into people? and give away a few pens. Like, what do I do? But I know that sitting in my office or sitting in front of my TV, watching Dr. Phil isn't going to make me money. So
that's for sure. Or going on Facebook.
You got to break it all down. Well, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So let's talk about,
you
Exactly. Well, I read something interesting. Somebody sent me this article because, we make fun of all that social stuff because it is so silly. Guys, what social networking really at the end of the day is, look, it's useful, it's fun, and all that, but it's not going to get you into the end zone as far as running a successful business. It's just not. The only people that are running successful social networking-based businesses are the ones that are selling you on how to basically make money from supposedly selling creating leads off social networking. In other words, they're creating sort of a myth for you to believe in so that you'll buy their product about how to build social networking. I mean, that really is at the end of the day how it's actually translating. And another fascinating trend in social networking is definitely a trend that's going to round the bend as far as the new shiny pretty object that salespeople gravitate towards. But in an era where a lot of people they've lost the ability to communicate, not just people in their 20s and whatnot, but even people that are older, they just cannot have a conversation with people because they've lost the ability to talk. They don't know how, and they've been so trapped in their own little bubble, and it's been reinforced with all the things they read on social networking, and they think they've literally just lost touch with reality. And one of the things that we strongly suggest all of you guys do, if you're finding yourself stuck in that paradigm, is have a media-free morning. Do this. I don't want to talk about it. Just go to timandjulieharris.com, and the search bar on the top, just put media-free morning. We've done a lot of podcasts on that. And listen to the replays on that particular topic, because if you want a way to sort of clear the head junk out of your head, maybe the thing that you need to hear is you need to purge all these outside influences and just focusing on your highest and truest purpose, which is being of service to other people. So you have really fantastic production, you have really fantastic profit, and you have, I think Julie told me, one assistant. Is that true?
Yeah, yes and no. So I've had one assistant since about 6 months after I started, so about 4.5 years. She's very much at the beginning kind of part-time. I shared her with another agent, and she worked about a third of the time, I would say. And then, she kind of grew into the fact that she was working for me full-time. And my daughter now has started with me in the summers when she was going to university as an assistant. And she's brilliant with the marketing and doing the advertising and making them look pretty and all that type of stuff that I'm not as good at. I'm aware of that. But she's now in the process of getting her license. And within, I would say, the next 3 months, she will be, working alongside me. And we're going to have to kind of restructure how we're doing things. But I have resisted the whole team thing because I see it for what it is. I recognize the extra effort and distraction that would put on me in the respective training, and obviously splitting commissions and costs and all that type of stuff. And if anything, I think that would just slow me down. It might, maybe I could sell another, 20 houses a year or something and be higher up on the list of agents in Canada or something. But at the end of the day, if that's not making me profit, why would I do that? And I do think it would distract me from what I love doing, and that's dealing with the clients and dealing with the people. So for me, it's a bit of an integrity breach to go on a listing appointment and sell them on, dealing with me and then handing everything off to someone else who, in my opinion, wouldn't survive in real estate without the team leader. And I know that sounds really harsh, but to me, that's where my headspace is, and I struggled with it. So in my world, I've resisted that. And I don't have any aspirations of going up into some big team and taking on that extra level of responsibility and, extra cost and trying to find leads for a bunch of extra people. But, obviously when it's my daughter, that's a totally different story. And I really think we can complement one another really well. And she has, watched and learned for the past 3 or 4 years while she's here in the summer. And, her instincts are my instincts. I think she'll be a really good extension of what we're already doing and bring a more youthful run to it. I'm 52, so it's, she definitely knows a lot of things and languages that I don't even know, as far as the whole tech world and all that type of thing. So I think that's going to be really helpful.
Here's an interesting fact about teams, guys, and we're going to have somebody coming up, I think in January. His name is Don Yoakum, and he has done an absolute more research than Julie and I have on essentially the team business model. And the parallels with just a traditional brokerage are uncanny. In essence, they're unprofitable. And when you look at, just to underline the research that he sent to me that we'll be talking about on the podcast, and again, we're going to break this down on the future show. But the essence of it is if you were to, if Bob has a team and he has 6 buyer's agents and he has all these, support assistants and all the rest of it, if you take Bob's personal production out of it, you're going to see that team absolutely positively doesn't make any money. As a matter of fact, it loses money. In other words, Bob's personal production is what keeps the business afloat. That's it. So the buyer side transactions that he's pushing through are just paying for themselves. So it's money that's just coming in and going back out. He's not making any profit from it. So then you ask yourself, well, Tim, what are you talking about? Everybody tells me I need to form a team or be part of a team. It's because their motivation behind telling you that is not in alignment with you making profit. And you need to be very clear about that. Just to break this down, make this really simplistic for all of you. Let's say you have a team that makes $1 million in commissions. That's great in any market, no doubt. But the average, if you compare that, say, same sale price, same, similar market, and then you compare that to, say, somebody who sells, let's say, they make $300,000. The person making $300,000 with, say, one assistant is actually going to have a greater net profit than the person who made $1 million with a team. And this is the thing that a lot of you guys are confused about because nobody's telling you. Nobody's actually exposing the truth about these numbers. So the bottom line is the team business model is a really, really bad business model, assuming your goal is to make profit. And which I hope all of your goal, that is, the profit motivation is what's going to drive all your other decisions. If you're profit motivated, you're going to say, I am a salesperson. If you're profit motivated, you're going to say, I am going to figure out how to be the best salesperson I can be. If you're profit motivated, you're actually going to say, you know what, I'm doing this out of, I love what he said, integrity and the love for being able to be service to other people. That's if you're profit motivated. Otherwise, it's a lot of ego stuff. And you're going to hear more about this on the interview I'm going to do with Don. Well, it is confusing. Truthfully, when I talk about this, half the time I feel bad because I know that there's people that are listening that they don't understand. They got their licenses, they joined some brokerage, they got beat over the head with, you got to form this team, you got to add staff, and this is your way forward in the real estate business. And nobody ever slows them down and asks them, well, why did you get in this business? Did you get in this business just to be famous, or did you get this business to be rich?
And I think the profit
brokerage,
for a lot of people, and I went through this where profit, from running businesses, I get the fact that profit's a crucial piece of the puzzle or you're not going to be around. But for me, I want to serve people desperately as best I can, and the proceeds of doing that is profit. And the income that I'm making now is far superior to anything that I've ever made, but I can be so generous with that now. And the things that I'm on the boards of and the places that I volunteer and all that type of thing, I can give generously to those, and it makes me feel really good. And then all of a sudden it comes back to me again, where because I'm doing those things, I'm meeting more people, and it's this really cool circle, where things, you do the right thing and the right thing comes out of it type of scenario. But yeah, I think I was definitely uncomfortable with profit, and dealing with Julie and you and listening to all the different podcasts and stuff have really helped me be able to come to terms with speaking it. But it has to be about profit at the end of the day, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to look at every deal and say, how much am I making? I don't do that at all. It's like, can I help these people? And if I do that, then all of a sudden there's profit. And it's like, oh, that's cool. That's the way it should work.
Yeah, the profit conversation that you all should have internally, your filter, pertains just to what John just said. It doesn't pertain to looking at every customer as a dollar sign, which I know some of you are just hearing that because that's what you want to hear. Well, the relevance of this and how you actually use this type of thinking is when you're thinking about things to spend money on. Okay? That's where the conversation about profit has to come in, and that's where you cut off the legs of ego, bad-making, shiny object decision-making, you see? So the profit conversation, we're not trying to basically have you just essentially look at your customers as, just walking dollar signs. That's not at all what we're saying. What we're saying is run a profit-focused business, because then you can actually have a filter in place where you're going to start asking yourself, why am I thinking about doing this thing? Is it for the sake of making a profit? Because if it's for the sake of making a profit, that means this social networking, whatever thing I'm thinking about doing, there has to be a direct correlation between effort and results. In other words, I spend $1 on this, I better be making, $5, $10 back. And not within the future, maybe someday, somehow, but I want to be seeing that result immediately. And if whatever you're thinking about buying cannot produce those types of, you can't hold it accountable to a similar standard, then it's probably just a bunch of goofiness that is designed to essentially placate your desire not to have to put yourself in a position to hear no. In other words, it's just ego crap. And that's, if you've not come from a deep business background, you're not going to understand that. And everywhere you turn, in every book you read, they're talking about your team culture and forming your team and your branding and your websites and your online presence and your social networking. If you don't come from a business background, you're going to think that's normal. It's not. That's not how real business people think. That's how people trying to sell you crap, think.
Yep.
That because those products are easy to sell.
I was chatting with another huge team guy in our area, and it turns out I made about 20% less commissions than him in the past year. And when you look at that, and they've got 5 or 6 mouths to feed, I've got 1 plus a couple assistants. They can't be profitable. They just can't.
They're not. Yeah.
It just makes no sense.
Let's talk about this. We've been talking a lot about profit. I think this podcast is going to be very beneficial, especially this time of year, for anybody that's essentially wondering what direction they should go with their business in the next 2 to 3 years. This type of thinking, guys, it's what's going to make you rich. Rich is where your money works for you. You no longer work for your money. You are very good at holding accountable the things you spend money on. You've had Julie as your personal coach for I don't know how many years. Talk about that decision. Talk about hiring Julie Harris as your personal coach. Talk about how you can see a return on that investment, because coaching is not something you can necessarily see a direct correlation between effort and results, and yet she obviously has been your coach forever.
Right. So I obviously spent a lot of money on a lot of things, and that Julie by far has been one of the best investments that I've made. Having that accountability, there's been a couple times where I'm, deep in the weeds on something where I just need somebody to talk me off the cliff, and somebody who has the background to say, I just had somebody, that had that similar situation and they did this. How would that, in this particular case, how would that work out? And you can't just necessarily get that anywhere. As far as advanced knowledge of different things, like I'll phone her up and I'll say, oh my goodness, this is what's happening in our area, and she'll say, oh yeah, no, I've heard that several other places, and it's kind of like, oh okay, it's not just me. And there's a piece that comes from being able to have someone that can kind of talk to you on that level. And I mean, to be brutally transparent, I struggle sometimes with the income that I'm making and some of the accolades and all those types of things. And, she helps me deal with that, and I can talk to her and I don't feel like I'm being arrogant or boastful or whatever when I'm talking about any of those types of things, because she's dealing with people that make me look like a school kid. Like, I'm a joke compared to a lot of the people you coach. And in turn, that's good for me.
John, let's drill down on what you just said. But let's drill down on what you just said, because I think that's going to be misinterpreted. What he just said, listeners, is that he's making more money. He's making. I know you're Canadian, so you're going to be humble by nature. But he is getting more attention, making more money. He's become very successful in his world, and Julie helps to keep him on the rails, because sometimes, especially in real estate, we will give really too much ego-boosting stuff too quick to too many people. And that causes them to essentially, again, fall prey to a lot of the ego stuff. And that's kind of what you're expressing. I think that's what I'm hearing you say, right? Yeah.
Yep. And telling me that it's okay. Sometimes I don't have a ton of friends and people that I, deal with on a day-to-day basis that I could have a conversation about some of these types of things because they just wouldn't understand. So, I think it's really a crucial thing that you can have somebody that's a peer, but, that's 100% in your corner, and will tell you the hard truths. There's a few times where she's like, slapped me around and said, no, you're fluffing. You said you were going to do this. It's been a week or two and you haven't done it. So, what's going to happen the next week when we talk? What are you going to have done? And, she's firm. And sometimes you need that because you are working for yourself, and sometimes things are going pretty good and you think, maybe I can slack off. But you can't slack off because you're going to have a real downfall 2 months, 3 months from now when you don't have a paycheck.
That's right.
So it's been really good. And honestly, The podcast, I listened to the podcast for at least a year before I ever called in and got my free coaching call. And I learned so much from all the different radio programs. And I'm not trying to, plug the program. But the fact that you guys do that for free, I've told several new agents that are coming in to just start listening to your podcast. Don't spend money on anything yet. Start listening to the podcast, and you'll hear, a million things that are really helpful, from what not to do to what to do, and hear from people that have done it. I think that's invaluable, and it's free. That's right inside my price range. I love that. Bring it.
Well,
cheap.
Here's the thing, is that you right now are part of that tradition that I really appreciate you appreciating. You now are contributing to the formation or maybe the realignment with a lot of people. There's so many agents out there that are coming out of this in the United States. I know in your country too, but there's so many agents that have only come up during what was really maybe the last big seller's market of our lives. Who knows what's going to happen over the next couple of years, but there has been so many people that have gotten real estate licenses over the past few years and have felt like they're successful because, well, guys, listen, the houses have been selling themselves. If you just price it reasonably well and you put it in the MLS, for the most part, it has sold itself. That is the reason why so many of these gimmicky ideas have entered into our industry, is because so many of you guys are making so much money, and the money is then basically flowing to your ego and flowing to things that they're telling you you're supposed to be doing. And again, if you were to use the formula or use the filter that John and I suggested, then you'd be back in alignment with why you originally got your real estate license. And that's really what I hope all of you guys are listening to. And again, I humbly accept your praise for the show and for our coaching services. But listeners, this is the reason that Julie and I do this podcast. This is the reason that Julie and I have our coaching business, because for 3 different cycles we've been coaching agents. And as a lot of you do or maybe don't know, Julie and I were successful selling real estate for almost a decade ourselves, between selling 100 and 200 houses a year. But what really drives us at this point, and John, I'm 50 in March, by the way. What really drives us at this point, and John, you understand what I'm saying when I say this, is because we want to help as many of you avoid the immense amount of hardship that you're going to experience if you're not prepared to the adjustments in the market, which are absolutely taking place. And if you are continuing to try to perpetuate these bad, broken business models, which a lot of you are, you're not just going to needlessly suffer for yourself, but you're also going to cause your family to suffer. Or more importantly, you're going to cause the future version of yourself to suffer. You heard John say he knows if he stops generating leads, that it's not going to be adversely affect him right away. It's 2 or 3 months from now. That's part of the things that we teach you in the real estate coaching, in our coaching business. And by the way, he also mentioned a free coaching call. So here's what I want to do for all of you guys. First of all of you need to be completing your real estate treasure map. And all you've got to do is text the word Harris, Harris, to 31996. Text the word Harris, Harris, to 31996. We're going to text you directly back an opportunity for you to schedule your free coaching call, and also links to download 7 free books. The one I want you to download now is the Real Estate Treasure Map. That's going to walk you through, and Julie wrote about 90% of this herself, probably 12 years ago, but it's incredibly relevant. Obviously, it's a business plan. It's a fill-in-the-blank business plan. It's going to walk you through all the questions and thoughts you need to have so you can actually create your own future around profit, around being of service to other people. All you've got to do is text the word Harris, HARRIS, to 31996. And also, listeners, I know some of you want to skip that step and you want to talk to us about private coaching services. And here's what I'm going to do. I think actually Julie has got 3 spots open in her schedule. I'll have to check. But if you're interested in hiring Julie, for example, to be your personal coach, I want you to text me directly at 512, this is my actual cell phone number, 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206. So John Walkinshaw, listen, I really appreciate your support of our business. I appreciate your mindset. I love listening to you talk because you are well entrenched in the Harris parlance, which I always like to hear.
I drank the Kool-Aid. You guys are amazing, and I sure appreciate it. I think I would have done okay without you guys, but I'm definitely at the level I'm at because of you guys, and I sure appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you, sir. And if you would like to extend a way for them to communicate directly with you, that's your call. If you would like to give them your contact, email, phone number, whatever, go ahead.
Yep, more than happy. If anyone wants to reach out to me, my cell phone number is 519-942-7413. And again, that's my cell, so if they could text or call, I'm more than happy to help any way I can.
And if you happen to be a seller in John's market and you stumbled across this podcast, trying to decide which agent in your marketplace you're going to hire, it is impossible for you to find anybody more sincerely caring and knowledgeable than John Walkinshaw. So please do absolutely hire him as your listing agent. He's fantastic. He's one of Julie's favorite coaching clients ever. I know I probably shouldn't say that, but it's still true. So John, thank you very much.
Ways. And North Toronto is my area. If any agents have anybody move into the area, for sure.
There you go. So John, I really appreciate your time.
Awesome.
God bless
you.
everyone.
Really
that's our pleasure. And God bless everyone. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows. And until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.